Hey, good day, everybody. Welcome back to our Zoom Daily with Rabbi Shlomo Schwartz, to a realistic map of meaning, where he's been going through his list of 199 relevant mitzvahs that have some connection to B'nai Noach, and very, very interesting. And I'm so glad he's touching on some points. It just helps unfurl a lot of the opportunities for us to truly live life. So let's just jump right in and see how Rabbi Schwartz is doing tonight. Shalom, Rabbi Schwartz. I got Ronald up on the screen. Nope, there you are.
Okay.
We're going to turn the class over to you, Rabbi, and
Thank you very
let you
much.
take it away.
Thanks, Dan. I just want to tell everybody that Dan is amazing for his enthusiasm. Every night he starts, sometimes he's got so many other things on the go, he gets very tired. But when it starts the class, he's just full of enthusiasm, and it's much appreciated. And I hope everybody appreciates that. So I'm going to show the screen with this. We're on this chart, the fifth chart of a fifth group of mitzvahs, Noahide mitzvahs, and this is under the title of "Do Not Steal" or "Do Not Rob." We did the first bunch, the first 8 last night. Now we're continuing with "Do Not Use False Measures," and number 10, "Do Not Retain False Measures." They come in totally different. Look at the sources. One's in Vayikra, Leviticus, and the other one's in Devarim, Deuteronomy. But their only difference in this is don't use and don't retain. So at two different places, many times the Torah will, sort of remind you of an issue by sprinkling different phrases on the same issue, but slightly different messages, which makes them valid for the count. So this first one is don't a false measure. You're selling stuff, and they used to well, we have scales today, and of course your scale should be accurate. Especially in those days, they had standard weights that this is a pound, this is 2 pounds, or whatever. Usually, I don't mean to offend any cultural sensitivities, a kilogram or so on. And so they talk about in the Talmud, they talk about these guys. What they would do is they would salt. They would have 2 sets of measures. One that was maybe water laden, a little heavier, just a little heavier than the other, and the other one had a few salt holes in them. They were a little lighter. So when it went to purchase something from their suppliers, they would use the one that had salt in it that was lighter, so they'd get more. And then when they sold it, they used the one that was a little water laden, a little heavier, so they would sell less. And they would, try and do that. So God's on to that. There's all kinds of ways to cheat. I was just reading about the Chofetz Chaim. I've mentioned him. He's the one that identified the 271 mitzvahs that are only the 271 of the 613 that are relevant today. He was very meticulous in business. He had a little grocery shop or variety store, let's say, and everybody used to shop by him because he was renowned as a righteous man, and he used to measure every day. He would measure these scales and make sure they were perfectly accurate and so on. Until he finally had to close. He started closing early because nobody else could do business. Everybody came to him, so he had to let other people have some customers. So he would close early. Amazing man. At any rate, so we have one mitzvah: do not use false measures. Make sure your scales are accurate. And the second mitzvah is don't even retain them, because you'll wind up using them by mistake. Somebody else might use them. Yeah, they're a bad thing to have around. So don't do that. And in that same spirit, do not. Now, of course, when you're using false measures, so the trick is you have to have a special mitzvah about this, because you're not grabbing something away from somebody. He gave you the money willingly. It's just it was under false pretenses. So you might think that, well, I didn't take it from him. I didn't grab it, and he gave it to me. So, buyer beware. No, not buyer beware. You can't fool them into this. In a similar vein, this third one, do not falsify land records. Again, you're not taking anything. The land's there. You can't take land away from somebody. The land is there. But what you can do is you can move a marker that, people lose the record of who's, where's the property line drawn. There's many, even modern stories about how people became aware that somebody erected a fence on their property, took away some of their land, and then They became very expensive for them to move they could force them to move the fence just for the width of the passage, to feel more comfortable walking down the laneway in between the houses or something like that. So you're not allowed to take away somebody's land, even though you didn't take anything; it's still there. Okay, we're going on to number 12 is do not overcharge. Now, this is an interesting one. This really only applies to something that has a standard price, because if it doesn't have a standard price, how can you say I overcharged? My version is a little better than everybody else's. So this discussion hailed back to the time when the only standard items were, let's say, grain or fruit or produce of some kind, where, sorry? No, cattle not, because, one animal is bigger than the other, stronger than the other, healthier than the other. There's a lot of variation. So you can't say that there's a standard price for cattle. But there is a standard price for wheat. It's sold by the pound, and this is the going price. And that's true even today in the commodities exchange. The people, there's a standard price, and it's set by the market. And I don't care what bushel of wheat you give me, but that's the price. The price may change based on what people think is going to happen to the produce, but no, nobody's not that particular bushel. Whereas now you might argue with me and say, well, you do the same thing in the commodities market. They do the same thing with um, uh, what do they call hog? I don't know how they call it, but they're dealing with hog carcasses, like just the dead animal. I think so. There, it's meat. It's got by the pound. So there, you can already establish that is a standard item. But when you're dealing with a live item, or particularly a piece of furniture, which may have individual workmanship on it, that would not be subject to overcharge. That's, and you charge what you want. The guy, we're not talking about where the told them I want this money for everybody else is charging this, I want more. So even so, if the market price is less, you're overcharging by a certain amount, but little amounts weren't considered were considered negligible, but by a certain amount, then you had to return the difference, or you could reverse the sale and say, okay, so give me back my money and go sell it somewhere else. And there's a lot of rules to deal with this. And today you might apply the rules again, because today we have again standardization of many things, like cars, like computers, you can't say, well, no, this computer is stronger or more efficient. Uh, okay. So price fixing is so give me an example. What you mean by price fixing? Right? But what was it? The manufacturers colluded amongst themselves to fix the price at more than the government deemed reasonable. Is that, yeah? So you see that there's the government gets involved, and they're really responding. It's a dicey issue. It's not quite the same as a commodity that has no that it's common to everything. It's this wheat is the same as that wheat is the same as the other wheat. Got the other wheat down the road. So it's just, what's the price?
Yeah, Rabbi, when I worked for a Jewish family, go way back in the early 1990s when the Saturn car company came out,
Uh-huh.
and Saturn believed in what they called fair market pricing.
Right, right,
And so they were the same price everywhere, and we were encouraged to not negotiate. Just
right,
that was the policy, no negotiation. The price was the price was the price. Well, then people want to, compare and shop their trade values, for instance, and
right.
people still would buy a deal by overpaying for a trade. And the government didn't get involved because it was they looked at it as a degree of price fixing, and it was not in the consumer's best interest. And
Right.
yeah.
So the Torah recognizes this, and so really that's part of the what I'm introducing, is that this rule is not as widespread or widely applied as you might like or think. It's only on standard commodities, because only there can you say that there is a standard price of the thing. But let's say cars, Saturn comes out and says, we want this price.
Well,
They're entitled.
on YouTube right now, I got my friend Fred Rawls there is saying just like gas prices appear to be price gouging.
So gas prices, you could say gas is gas, right? There's no difference in this gallon than that gallon. So that is what's the standard price. Now, but then there's you have to bring the we're dealing with ancient civilization where there wasn't a large distance to travel from the place it was grown to the place it is. So there's this local price that developed. But if you have to bring it in from, let's say, Rome, so that's a different issue, because now you've got to add on. But if you can only get it from Rome, then everybody's going to have to pay the transportation costs. So gas, what do you do? There's places where there's closer, places where and then they differentiate. We got an additive in there that's better for your car, and the other guy says, well, how much lead is in it, and so on. So they differentiate it. Once you start differentiating, you can have different prices. So it's a very knotty issue. I wish my phone had stopped ringing. But so all I can say is that once there is a standard price, in case where there are, then you are not allowed to overcharge. But if you can identify that you've got a different article than everybody else is selling, then it doesn't apply. And then it's back to what is it called? A caveat emptor. If somebody's concerned that they're paying too much, it's their business to find out. Which is a necessary thing. You have to know what you're doing. Okay, there's a special rule. Whatever we establish is that there's a special rule to a convert who's somebody new to the community and a stranger and feels easily set upon and easily taken advantage of. That person, you have to be especially careful not to overcharge. Make a special extra effort to make sure he's getting the right price that everybody else is paying. That we have that idea across a number of issues. Number 14 is do not ignore a lost article, and the next one is return a lost article to its owner. So they go together. If you come across and you're walking along and you see somebody lost something, and then you have a duty to not ignore it, to pick it up, take care of it, look after it, and do what you can to return it. There's all kinds of rules that go around with this, because let's say it's a pet, somebody's pet. There's often you find guys posting notices on lampposts or billboards, little notice lost, a terrier or something like that. Looks like this, answers to this name, and so on. People love their pets, and they go frantic when they lose them. So if you find a pet that seems to be lost, you have a duty, actually, if you know how to take care of it and can do so safely. You have a duty to take it and look after it until you can establish who the owner is, with caveats. The caveat is, first of all, you don't have to spend your own money to do this. So you're going to be able to charge the owner, when you find that owner, what it costs you to look after this animal. And if it can cost you more than the animal's worth, we'll figure that out. But then you can just sell the animal and keep the money, and try and return the money to the guy, if it's possible. But the other probable issue is, can you ever find the owner? How do you identify the owner? Is there identifying marks on the lost article? Can somebody prove to you that they are the owner? Sometimes they can by, there's maybe a license.
Rabbi, can you explain when something is hefker?
Yeah, okay, I'll get to that. But let's say there's something, let's say an identity bracelet or a collar around the dog or the cat or something, so you can identify with that. Let's say certainly there's a serial number on a car. Let's say it was put in a special place in a special way. It looks obviously that somebody parked it there, put it there. So it looks abandoned now, and it's going to get lost. Somebody's going to take it, or the tide's coming in and going to ruin it, and so on. So you take it, put it away, but you take a picture of the place, and if somebody can identify it, then they can have it back. But if there's no way to identify the article, then you can consider that the owner has given up any hope of ever retrieving that article, and then you can keep it. You have no duty to return it because you'll never be able to prove it to you. So it's like, and now we come to the idea of hefker. So because people can leave something, so I don't want this anymore. So whoever wants can take it. Right? They're not making an announcement. Not going to bother putting an ad in the paper. Although now there is a way of doing that. I'll get to in a minute. So when that happens, when somebody renounces ownership, that's called a hefker. So they're just leaving it. Whoever wants can take it. So you can take it with it. You don't have to. If you know that it's hefker, you can take it. You don't have to worry about it. How does that happen today? Craigslist. You look at Craigslist, you'll find under many articles, they'll find, especially
Yeah, we had a spring pickup last week of where you're in our neighborhood. You're allowed to put out heavy item pickup, right, or large item pickup,
right.
and so we put out a decent chair, like a high back, leather kind of looking. Anyways, the point being, that day there's all these trucks driving around
Right.
looking at things that people have put out, and
Right.
of course our chair was gone before the pickup, right? So
So you made it
it's
hefker.
hefker at that
You
stage. Yeah.
made it ownerless, and they took advantage of that. They have a way of making money out of that. I had a friend. I had a fellow we used to invite for a meal every now and then. He was really, it was a bit of a sickness with him. He didn't sell so much. He was a hoarder. He'd hoard a lot of stuff, and he had a pickup truck, and he'd go around and pick up these things. And I think he sold some of it. He made a bit of money. So there's people that do that. Yes, that's true. But sometimes you can make a good matter of fact. I would just happen to see a YouTube video showing a guy that would go and scrape the mud on the sidewalks in the jewelry district in New York, and would often find he would actually panic for gold. He would find gold nuggets and jewelry items that fell out of the guy's hands out in front of the store because there's a lot of traffic there and people are something falls out of your hands. Okay, that's business, and he would make enough, maybe $800 a week or something like that. Right? Some weeks, not every week, but you know. So it was very interesting. Never heard of that before, but there you go. It was hefker. Nobody had any, and of course, even if a guy would come and say, "I lost something here," you wouldn't be able to identify it. So you can claim ownership. Um, Okay, so that is, but on the other hand, there is a mitzvah, there's a positive mitzvah when you can to return a lost article to its owner, and but you don't have to spend your assets doing so, um, and um, and so you should be cognizant of the fact that if you have to spend, he should be able to or pay you on that. Okay, um, do not press an owner to sell and do not plan sales pressure. Look at the source, 220. That should tell you that it's in the Ten Commandments. And 5:5 is the second set of the Ten Commandments, the copy, the repetition of them in Deuteronomy and Dvarim. But they're two separate mitzvahs. The 10th commandment in one place is in Hebrew lo sachmod or tachmod. Do not desire, covet, however they translate it. In the other place, it is lo sovel or toven, not to desire or want it. Different. The words themselves are almost similar, but the rabbis, the oral transmission, the oral understanding of these verses that was handed down from Moshe is that they refer to two different strategies. The first one is don't press an owner to sell. If somebody has something and you would like it, the famous Godfather thing, I'm making an offer you can't refuse. And they don't want to sell, you should not be pressing them to sell it. Now, this is a judgment call up to a point, because you don't know if he's just being difficult. You would like to trying to negotiate a bigger price. But at some point, you have to start offering a price that's kind of getting ridiculous. That's when he doesn't really want to sell it, so you shouldn't press it because eventually he will give in, but he didn't want to. He didn't want to give in, so you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do that to him. And the second level is even worse. is that you're planning the sales pressure. You make all kind of plan. How can I do this? What should I do? All kind of machinations to force the guy or pressure the guy or harass the guy to sell something he really doesn't want to sell. This happens. Um, Dad, you've been in the sales business. I'm sure you're familiar with guys that will do this, try to get you, they'll ask somebody to buy or to sell. Um, and there's a place for it because people will, the geisha that play hard to get. And this is all regular business. Nothing wrong with doing business. Nothing wrong with playing hard to get and trying to get a better price and something that's all part of the master plan. But there comes a point when it becomes too much, and that's what the Torah is cautioning against. And the fact that it's part of the Ten Commandments is not normally recognized, but there it is. Interestingly, I have an interesting insight on that because the Ten Commandments are five on each side, and if you look at the bulk of the ideas on each tablet, you'll see that on the right side, on the first one, they're mostly relationships between us and God. Don't there's a God. Don't use idols. Don't use God's name in vain. Honor the Shabbat. And the fifth one is honor your parents. Well, that seems to be between men and among people. Then the other side is for sure among people. It's don't kill, don't steal, don't commit adultery, don't give false witness. And now this one, don't press an owner to sell. So the rabbis, Midrash, I think, introduces the idea that there is a balance between the two lists that the each one relates to the other in a certain way, and there's very yeah. That's true. That's another issue. But what I'm getting at is, so it comes out. Well, let me give you an example. I've spoken a little about Shabbat. That Shabbat is a sign that God created the world, and so it's a special duty of the Jewish people to stop working on Shabbat because they're the sign. They're the testimony that God created created the earth and rested on the seventh day. So that's the fourth on the first tablet. The fourth one on the second tablet is don't give false testimony. So the idea of testimony is correlates one to the other. They shed light on each other that way. They relate, and this goes very deep if you once you start analyzing it. That the relationship we have with God is a mirror or very related to the relationship we have with each other. That's the whole design of it. And the one informs the other, and the other informs the one. So there's this dichotomy that is at work. So when you consider that, so the fifth one on the first one is honor your parents, and the 10th one, the fifth one on the other side, is don't try and get somebody to give up something that they already own. So in other words, leave them; they're happy with what they have. So what's the dichotomy? What are you learning one from the other? And my answer is that honoring your parents it's not so much to how you treat your parents. It's how you honor what God gave you. Your parents are the source from which you got your genes, your intelligence, your education, your socioeconomic status, your culture, your language you're speaking, the land you live on. All this comes from your parents. So and that's you don't want to give that up. That's your identity. And you have to recognize and appreciate that place which you're given from. And then the other side is you have this. You don't try and take somebody else's identity away from them. What they own, they like that. They don't want to give it up. Don't try and take it away from them. So they're very much a common theme between the two fives on the tablets that inform one another. So that's something to keep in mind. Oh, and is there something more you wanted to say on that, Don? Dan? Right. Okay. All right. So and every commandment has oodles of let's say, uh, right. Right. Okay, well, okay, so there's two parts. So you're right, but this one is talking about physical items, assets that you have, and the Torah has separate mitzvahs with regard to that. You'll recall if we go way back up um, on page, this is page 221. We go back way up to the idol worship category, where we have quite a few um, mitzvahs in that list. Uh, there was. Um, um, the very first one. Um, do not incite a person to idol worship. Um, do not make an idol to serve, to sell. So do not save us to do such idol worship. So there's a whole bunch of things talking about where people are trying to get you to think the wrong way, down the wrong path. So so there's two separate spheres of human activity. There's one selling, it's just assets. It's not your whole belief system. It's not your whole identity. It's not your eternity. It's just your assets here. Even that you shouldn't try and divest the guy when he doesn't want to give it up. But certainly you shouldn't mislead the guy to ideas. However, having said that, I still say that I prefer to engage these guys. Like it's sometimes hard to call it. I mean, they really believe that they're right, and so they're trying um, to explain themselves and introduce people to the right. I understand that. I can respect that feel, but don't lie about it. Don't um, don't misrepresent something. So that's where you have to be careful. Exactly, misrepresent is not allowed. Okay, here we have talking about assets. So do not forcefully take security for a loan. When you lend money, we had this before that you have a mitzvah to lend money. You're allowed to say, "Look, I can't afford to lose this money. I need security." And if they want to give it to you, they'll give them the loan. If they don't want to give it to you, that's their choice. But they don't have. I just can't afford to lose the money. So you're exempt from this. You can't take the chance. That's part of the course. However, let's say you lent the money without the security, and now the money is due. They didn't pay you back, so you take them to court and you say, they owe me money. Court says, well, they don't have it right now, but we will give you security. The court will give you security. You can't go in and take the security. Just because the line is you can't go into their house and grab something from them or take it out of their hands and say, this is security for my loan in case you never pay me back. They have to give it to you. And not only that, the next mitzvah is sometimes what you'll grab is something they need in the course of a regular lifetime. And the example given in the Torah is, let's say, day clothes and night clothes. That's how destitute the guy was. He only has one set of clothes to sleep in and one set of clothes to work in. And he gave you, let's say, his night clothes as security, and now it's nighttime, he's got to go to sleep. So you're going to give him back the pajamas. Give him back the pajamas and take the other set of clothes or whatever until the morning, and then you'll exchange with him. So you have to let him use his security, but it just gives you the comfort that you have something in hand in case something goes wrong. Just a very high level of care and concern for the guy that had to borrow the money. And so this is, and it has a positive and negative. Return the low security when he needs it, and do not deny return when the owner requires it. So that's a very strenuous item. And trying to finish the list here. We're just the last minutes. Indulgent employee. Okay, this is these last three I'm going to have to explain. It's going to take a bit to explain, so we're going to leave it off here for tonight. This is Thursday night, so we'll see you again until Sunday night. Okay.
Yeah, excellent stuff, Rabbi. Thank you so much. So we're not on until Sunday.
Right.
We will be back on Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. If you want to register to participate in the Zoom, you can contact Rabbi Schwartz at his email at sbs447. That's Sam Bob Sam 447. sbs447 at gmail.com. Or you can send me a note on Dan Barwell on Facebook Messenger. I'd be glad to share the Zoom link with you. We love. I do open it a half hour early, so we can chit chat. It's always a joy to have our friends Rabbi and Ronald join us. Ronald's all the way down in Australia. It's tomorrow for him, and Rabbi, good friend down in Texas. Rabbi, Ronald, did either of you guys have a question to ask the Rabbi before we close out for the night?
I'm good.
Ronald, you good?
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good. Yep.
Excellent. Yeah, we know you're
thank
good.
you.
We know you're
Yeah,
good.
no, I don't have any. No, I don't have any questions. This is pretty straightforward and easy to dissect. It's just surprising how many divisions there are for each mitzvah. You know, so many ways to look at exactly what's going on. But it's all for refining yourself, though. That's the thing. It's really there to refine you to the nth degree, if possible.
It's a very good comment because it shows how there's so many opportunities. Once you're aware of the details, there's so many opportunities to walk in God's footsteps every moment of the day without being heroic or anything. Just, you're aware that this is an issue for God. This is an issue between people, and do it the right way. And
do it because it's
makes you a godly person.
Excellent. So there you go, folks. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. Thank you, Rabbi Schwartz. Shabbat shalom to you, and we will see you on Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. And we'll catch you then.
Okay. Be well, everybody.
All right, folks, I'm going to sign out of Zoom Daily with Rabbi Shlomo Schwartz for today, and we'll see you all Sunday. Bye for now.